Hello and welcome to Arise News. I'm Ososami, coming from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Today we bring you a special Democracy Day edition of the program, which will focus on President Buhari's address to the nation and with an emphasis on the economic high points. It's a global business report. Do stick around. Today, June 12th, 2020, marks the 27th anniversary of the 1993 presidential election, which has been acknowledged globally as the freest and fairest electoral exercise in Nigeria's history. In a broadcast address to mark the occasion, President Buhari thanked all of those who had been fighting to limit to the barest minimum the devastating effect of COVID-19 on the country. He also spoke extensively about the federal government's plan to support critical sectors of the economy in order to stave off any negative implications.
On the economic front, our objectives have remained to stabilize the macroeconomy, achieve agricultural and food security, ensure energy sufficiency in power and petroleum products, develop infrastructure, fight corruption, and improve governance. We have witnessed 11 quarters of consecutive GDP growth since exiting recession. The GDP grew from 1.91% in 2018 to 2.27% in 2019, but declined to 1.87% in the first quarter of 2020 as a result of the decline in global economic activities due to COVID-19 pandemic. Every single economy in the world has suffered a decline. Ours has been relatively moderate. In order to stabilize the economy, the Monetary Authority took steps to build the external reserves, which resulted in improved liquidity in the foreign exchange market. The external reserves grew from $33.42 billion United States dollars on April 29, 2020, to about $36 billion United States dollars in May 2020, which is enough to finance 7 months of import commitments.
All right, lots to discuss. For more on this, we're joined by Arise business analyst Bode Ososami in London, and here in Nigeria with me in the studio is Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu. You're both welcome. Good morning to you, Bode, and good morning to you, Chika. President Buhari listed his economic objectives in his Democracy Day speech. Bode, I'll start with you. How do you think we've performed in terms of achieving those objectives?
Well, I think the first issue is the data is somewhat sparse, although he did draw attention to this GDP statistic. When I say the data is sparse, when we are looking at things like unemployment, particularly on a monthly basis, we don't get that kind of data. And some of the issues related to poverty are also very out of date. But indeed, the GDP grew from 1.91% in 2018 to 2.27% in 2019, declined to 1.87% in the first quarter of 2020. But if you use the statistics of per capita, GDP per capita, that means you put into cognizance our population growth, then of course you would see that we actually declined. We didn't grow, we actually declined in GDP. And I think that is far more relevant to us because we are a growing population. Indeed, every country suffered a decline, like the president said, but we should also remember that we're still in the curve and we were late in getting into the COVID infection curve. It's too early to pass conclusions on our performance, although I must commend the response, which was very robust, the response of the monetary and fiscal authorities to try and address the issues. But I think that the GDP statistics is nebulous if you don't look at it from the per capita perspective. And of course, external reserves is even more nebulous. If you are looking at a low level of economic activity, the president said we had 7 months of import commitments. I am not sure that is will continue to be accurate if the activity picks up significantly, particularly if the GDP becomes maybe more positive on a per capita basis. I think we will see the import cover for that 36 billion as much less than 7 months. But by and large, I think it's a speech that dwelt more on the economy, which I think is very good. It certainly means the president is focusing on the economy and the importance on the welfare, the economic welfare of people is certainly something on the top of the mind of Buhari.
Thank you very much, Bode. Chika, I'm going to throw the same question to you with regards to the economic objectives and how you think we have performed.
As Bode has said, the speech dealt substantially on the economy, which is very, very good. You recall one of the priority areas he said was stabilize the macro economy. The macro sometimes is measured primarily by the GDP. And as you've already seen, GDP grew 2018 to 2019 and then fell in Q1 of 2020. Now, you look at the parameters of macroeconomy and look at the unemployment level, the per capita income and other similar parameters, and you find that a lot of them are still struggling, and the challenges are still there. And so the poverty level, the poverty is increasing. And so substantially, you will find that we're still in the doldrums. Do recall that 2015, when they came into power, shortly after that, they went into recession that lasted to 2016, and we exited it, and then started struggling to grow the economy. And then that's how you've seen how many quarters of economic GDP growth. But the issue at the end of the day is that how have these parameters affected the guy on the street? Is his life better in any way? Are more people employed now in any way? And so on and so forth. And for me, those issues, the jury stay out in those respects.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Bode already mentioned this, but I do want to bring up the president's quotes on GDP growth with regards to how we've reacted, or rather been impacted by COVID-19, where he says that every single economy in the world has suffered a decline. Ours has been relatively moderate. Bode, let me throw this back to you. When the president says this, should we, as far as putting it in context, then what we've seen, he was referring to the slowdown in GDP of 1.87 in the first quarter. But have we seen the full impact yet of COVID-19? And is that statement that our impact has been relatively moderate, is that a little too early?
Well, I think the president traditionally always tries to bring out the positive aspects. And to some extent, yes, the GDP numbers, particularly the decline, is not as bad as what we've seen. We just heard the UK economy declining month on month by 20%. But you see, the difference, I think, between us and the UK and some of these other countries is that their democracy, the strength of their democracy is linked to adequate accountability and scrutiny driven by data and challenge of government positions. If we don't get these types of month-to-month analysis, we don't have the data, and not just having the data, challenging the data and putting the government in a difficult position or in a top position to respond, then you don't get the beauty of democracy. And we are celebrating Democracy Day. Although many say our economy is young, the level of accountability, I still think, is low. That is why I think this is a nebulous statistic to claim we're doing better, simply because the actual GDP growth, which is not GDP per capita, because on the GDP per capita basis, we're not growing. We're actually negative, while they have slowing economies, slowing populations. Our population is growing. So we really should be looking at poverty. We should be looking at unemployment. We should be looking at GDP per capita. And these are the things we should be comparing. And obviously, the reason why this GDP number is being used in the speech is because it has a positive tone to it. And my sense is that the lack of accountability and the lack of scrutiny and the lack of challenge is making our democracy weak. But perhaps others have another view.
Thank you for that, Bode. Chika, you've analyzed companies here. You've talked about how soft Q2 is going to be going ahead. So how do you take this GDP analysis for Q1?
Yeah, but let me take a step back, and so don't lose sight of something. Just like for individuals, we are told that for people who have pre-existing conditions, the COVID-19 problem, makes it worse. It's the best fit.
Right.
Now, it's something for economists. Our problem really is not caused by COVID. What COVID has done is it has, accentuated the fundamental problems that we have had pre-existing. Our economy was struggling before COVID. Indeed, the GDP per capita was negative even before COVID. The reserves were actually already falling before COVID. So these issues are fundamental, and we have to recognize that. And so, as Bode has said, analyzing the economy sometimes is very difficult. The issues have to do with, do we have enough data to analyze our economy?
Yes.
And that's basically how you look at the GDP growth. But the GDP growth is struggling. These are early days. I said it several times that Q1 is going to be, going to be much better than Q2. The Q2 is ending end of this month, yes. June 30th.
Yes. And
we'll be able to see the full impact of the COVID crisis. Because in Q1, which was January, February, March, from Nigeria, for example, it was just maybe towards the last days of March that the economy was shut. So the impact of COVID, we will see more in Q2, and then we'll be able to situate that vis-a-vis the segment that we made.
Thank you. Let's switch gears to agriculture. Now, let's take a listen to what the president said with regards to the initiatives that we're pursuing with regards to agriculture.
Agriculture remains the key to our economic diversification strategy. The Presidential Fertilizer Initiative Program continues to deliver significant quantities of affordable and high-quality fertilizers to our farmers. This initiative has also revived 31 blending plants and created a significant number of direct and indirect jobs across the value chain. Government is also revamping the cotton, textile, and garment sector via a CBN Textile Revival Intervention Fund that would considerably reduce foreign exchange spent on cotton and other textile imports. Through the Food Security Initiative, we are promoting grow what you eat and eat what you grow. I am also delighted that more and more Nigerians are taking advantage of the opportunities in the agriculture and agri-business sector. I assure you that government will continue to support agriculture through the CBN Anchor Borrowers Program and similar schemes. To protect our farming investments, we have deployed 5,000 agro rangers and employed 30,289 in our paramilitary agencies. We are also integrating rural communities to the formal economy by extending access to credit and inputs to rural farmers and building feeder roads.
Okay. Now, Bode, I want to come to you here. Just specifically the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative Program. And the president said, quotes, that they've created a significant number of direct and indirect jobs across the value chain. How do we measure this?
Well, I don't have visibility of that data and what makes it significant, given that we're talking about maybe conservatively 40% unemployment, and we know we're talking about tens of millions that are not at work. So that is, I again, something that maybe can be fact-checked in terms of the impact that it's having. My sense, voters, if you listen to the entire speech, particularly in the area of agriculture, there are lots of activities. There is little that is transformational in what the president has mentioned. And when you have so many activities, you can actually get into an activity trap. That's a process where you have so many things going on. And the impact really is not either being felt, or you're not even measuring or reviewing the impact to ensure you are doing things properly. Take, for example, the latest GDP numbers. If you look at the impact on agriculture, the growth in the agricultural sector was quite mediocre in spite of many of these very laudable PSA programs, at least the way they look like on paper. I would advise, or I would have thought we are at a stage where we should have some kind of review, an independent review of these programs, and let's see what is working, what is not, and whether this incremental path that we are taking is the right path. It's very gradualist, but I sense the president has been a bit optimistic when he's referring to these as having a significant impact on unemployment number, which is quite a huge number indeed.
Thank you, Bode. Chika, it's the same question to you, but I want to frame it this way. The president also said that they are revamping the cotton, textile, and garment sector via the CBN's Textile Revival Intervention Fund that he says will considerably reduce foreign exchange spent on cotton and other textile imports. Just yesterday, Chika, you and I were talking about the central bank financing 1.6 million farmers during the wet season. In line with this activity trap that Bode has just mentioned, can you add your comments?
I must put it this way. I commend the government on the initiatives on diversification. You know, as Bode has said, and rightly so, there's so much activity going on in the agricultural sector. A lot of things are happening. A lot of initiatives are out there. And interestingly, the CBN has been the lead organization in pushing out these initiatives. But the issue is that how impactful have they been? You will see that we talk about the fact that oil contributes 90% of our foreign exchange. In the last 5-6 years, has that changed? No, it has not changed.
Right.
Oil and aggregates contribute about 60-70% of our total revenue. Has that changed? That has not changed.
Right.
So you find that, yes, the needle has a lot of activities are happening in the agricultural sector. A lot of initiatives are happening. The cotton initiatives is going on, returning us to that era where our economy depended on cotton, cocoa, and palm oil. That's the drive. Producing what we can eat and eating what we produce, that's the drive. So, but the issue is the movement. It's been movement in the parameters that we can use in measuring whether we have been successful have just been very, very, very micro. And that's the issue for us.
Thank you for that. Okay, we've talked agriculture. Let's talk about oil now. Let's take a listen to the president and what he said about oil.
In over 10 years, Nigeria is conducting bidding process for 57 marginal oil fields to increase revenue and increase the participation of Nigerian companies in oil and exploration and production business. We continue to grow local content in other areas of the oil and the gas sector with the disbursement of funds from the $200 million United States dollars Nigerian Content Intervention Fund to indigenous manufacturers and service providers. With sustained engagement of youth, opinion leaders, and other stakeholders, we have restored peace in the Niger Delta region and maintained our oil production levels. The head office of the Niger Delta Development Commission will be commissioned shortly. The funding of Section 1 to 4 of the East-West Road shall be pursued with a view to completing the project by the end of 2021. Furthermore, I am determined to ensure that development meant for the people of the Niger Delta get to them. So I have authorized a forensic audit of the Niger Delta Development Commission.
Okay, Bode, specifically, I mean, there was a lot said there, but I want to focus on oil and throw this to you. The exercise in the marginal oil fields, the exploration exercises. Now, I want to put that within the context of us trying to diversify our income stream away from oil. Can Nigeria be faulted for still pursuing that?
Well, I don't think it's the issue of even the marginal field. If you look at all the president said, this would have been fine if this was a local government chairman talking to his ward. These are the kinds of things you would tell them, or a chief talking to his small village. The big issues in oil and gas in Nigeria, one is reform. Everybody knows that. The other big issue is not just giving money for local content, but deepening the value chain, and of course, using the proceeds from deepening the value chain, privatizing, to diversify the economy to other areas apart from oil. So the president has been very silent, I would say, on these more important issues. Nothing said on oil and gas reform, nothing said on deepening the value chain, particularly the downstream, and even on local content. Disbursing funds to Nigerians is good, but these are small wins. The absence of big wins, I think, in this speech is another thing that I really must mention. It's full of all kinds of, if I would use the expression, minor activities, given the issues that we are facing. Where are the big wins? That's the question Nigerians should be asking. What are the answers to the big questions? The president is very experienced in the oil sector. He used to be the oil minister, so he knows what is going on. And it looks like the ostrich, his head is under the sand when it comes to oil and gas in Nigeria. But perhaps others have a different opinion.
Thank you for that, Bode. Chika, let's get your opinion on the pursuit of the marginal oil fields and trying to at least expand in that regard. What say you?
My colleague Bode has been very, very brutal in his analysis. But,
yes.
But those are the facts.
Yes, those are the facts, yes.
The facts that excuse me, there are major fundamental issues in the oil and gas sector. And the sector is crying for reforms. We have the PIB, excuse me, the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill has been there for a long time now.
Yes.
No, nothing is talking about it. We thought maybe this was an opportunity for him to address it. It's not addressed. It's
not there.
You know that. So the issue, the environment again, is it a right environment to go and do marginal fields? Who?
Sorry, take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Lots to discuss today. Take your time.
Who will buy? Who will invest? Those are the issues.
Those are the issues.
Yeah.
Bode, I want to take you now to the ease of doing business with regards to the president saying that Nigeria rose by 25 places on the World Bank's ease of doing business ranking from 146th to 131st. And of course, being rated as one of the top 10 reformed economies. Is that a big win enough for you with regards to ease of doing business?
Look, Reuters, let's just face facts. I went to look at the World Bank's ease of doing business ranking just 5 minutes ago to refresh myself with what was there. Mauritius and Rwanda, they lead in Africa. Indeed, we moved up in our ranking from 146 to 131, but the countries that are doing better than us include Iran, Senegal, Ghana, Uganda, Lesotho, Kenya, South Africa, Togo, Djibouti, Cote d'Ivoire, Zambia, Botswana. Nigeria is one notch ahead of Niger. That is our great achievement, one notch ahead of Niger. Obviously, we must move to the top half of the table where we have joined Mauritius, Rwanda, South Africa, Zambia on the top half of the table, and we're nowhere near there. I don't doubt, or I don't want to say that we are doing nothing. The visa and arrival policy, promotion of initiatives, and so on, robust electronic registration and of our payment systems and seamless processing of business registration. Indeed, yes, but how much better are the other countries in Africa? I'm not even talking, we're not talking about Western countries now. I'm talking about Zambia, Kenya, and Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. Why are they scoring much better than us? Those are the questions we need to ask. And I think the key area is in the export logistics, and those are the important areas: import, export processes, port reform processes, some of our transportation bottlenecks, and so on. So I think we should just face facts that we are doing a lot, but we are not doing enough. That's just what the statistics, I believe, shows.
But Chika, I know you want to comment on this, but I also want to touch on power because we've got a couple minutes. Well, go ahead if you want to respond.
Basically, I'm talking about political transition, the electoral process. The investors are always very conscious of that. Remember, before the 2019 election, it was a major issue, the political uncertainty. The electoral laws need to be reviewed to make sure that we have proper transition, and I think we should look into that too. Okay,
very quickly, if you can, on power. He talked about the Siemens deal, the electrification plans by 11,000 megawatts by 2023. Your take real quickly, if you can.
I love that sector. I talked about it in the past.
Yes.
We need power in our country. We hope the Siemens deal works, and the government, the president, has put his power behind it to make sure that it works.
Bode, your thoughts on power real quick before we end.
Well, the Siemens deal just has to work, and that target 11,000 megawatts is admirable, and just like Chika said, we'll be closely monitoring the progress.
All right, thank you so much. Any closing thoughts on, I guess, Chika, anything optimistic to end Democracy Day? Oh, we run out of time. We've run out of time. But Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu and Bode Ososami in London, thank you both for coming through to talk about the president's speech.